It's time for the American Independence Festival.
Welcome to the American Independence Museum. Come on in.
I'm Jen. I'm the collections manager and curator at the American Independence Museum, and we're standing in the kitchen of the Ladd Gilman House, one of two historic buildings that make up our museum. The Ladd Gilman House was built in 1721 by the Ladd family and purchased later by the Gilmans, who lived here for most of the house's history. New interactives, including this one, that brings a lot of our reproduction items from the tavern up to the Ladd Gilman House. And this interactive focuses on all of the items that were taxed during the lead up to the American Revolution. And these items can be picked up, handled, touched, and experienced. This is a reproduction powder horn. It would have been used to carry and load gunpowder into muskets. We have our teacup to represent the tea tax that was enacted in the lead up to the Revolution, responsible for the Boston Tea Party. And we have a beautiful molasses glass jar that represents the Sugar Act that taxed molasses and other sugars. Also, fabric was taxed during the lead up to the American Revolution, and this caused women to boycott imported wool, and they decided to spin their own fabric as a means of protest. It was very effective. The Gilmans made several contributions to the cause for independence, and we explore some of that here at the American Independence Museum. Then in the early 20th century, America's oldest patriotic organization, the Society of the Cincinnati, purchased this building and made it their clubhouse. And in 1991, they decided to take all of their historic items and make it available to the public, and that's when the American Independence Center opened in 1991. We're in the Sullivan Room at the Ladd Gilman House to talk about this document right here, the Dunlap Broadside. The Dunlap Broadside was one of the very first printings of the Declaration of Independence that was printed in the hours of July 4th, 1776. And this document is actually the reason the Independence Museum exists today. During the 1980s, when the Society of the Cincinnati were using this house as their clubhouse, one of the society members found this copy of the Declaration of Independence in the attic. And after a court battle over ownership with the state of New Hampshire, the decision was made to make the Dunlap Broadside available to the public, and that's why the American Independence Museum was opened here at the Ladd Gilman House. And today we continue to share New Hampshire's revolutionary history and the Dunlap Broadside. The broadside is exhibited every year during our American Independence Festival, which takes place this year on July 16th, which happens to be the day that John Taylor Gilman, who once lived in this house, actually read the broadside to the public in Exeter's town square on July 16th, 1776.
I have in my hands a dispatch from the Continental Congress, which is currently located in Philadelphia. It's entitled A Declaration, and it's dated July 4th, 1776. I'd like to read it to you all now. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them with another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal station to which the laws of nature and of nature's God entitle them, a decent respect to the opinions of mankind requires that they should declare the causes which impel them to the separation. We hold these truths to be self-evident.
What's amazing about the Constitution is that it was intended to be a living document, meaning that the framers actually intended for it to be changed. And the Constitution, as it was written, did exclude a lot of people from democracy, but it allowed us to make changes throughout time, and that has been done through amendments, and it's part of The way our democracy works, we are intended to take part, and we can do that in many ways, such as volunteering for campaigns, contacting our representatives, or volunteering with civil organizations. My name's Jen Carr. I'm the curator and collections manager at the American Independence Museum. It's my job to create exhibits and tours, both in person and virtual. And I also take care of the over 3,000 items that we have in our collection. It's my job to preserve them, take care of them, and make sure that they are around for many generations to come. I also take care of the buildings here because they are part of our collection as well, and there is a lot of maintenance and preservation that goes along with keeping these buildings up and running and in good shape for our guests and for the future. I've always loved history, and so when I moved to New Hampshire several years ago, I found this museum and I just fell in love with it. And I was working on my master's degree in American history, and I came here and started volunteering. I was a docent, and I just loved it so much that when the position became available, I applied, and I've been here ever since, and it's been a really great experience.
My name is Joanne Keeler, and I'm the development manager here at the American Independence Museum in Exeter. I manage donations. We do an annual appeal every year. I oversee all of that. We also have a membership program. We have about 250 members. So we actually we're in our spring membership renewal and drive. So I've been working hard on that, and we're starting to get new memberships rolling in. And members get in free to our festival, and they have free tours available throughout the year and get to be invited to special events and so forth. And it all helps to support that. Just relocated to New Hampshire. I grew up in Massachusetts. I'm a huge history buff, and I was a history major in college in Vermont. And we're big into doing family genealogy and that kind of thing. I've been doing research on that. So I love history. I had prior experience at a museum, and just in general in the nonprofit field on the administrative side. And when we relocated, I came across this place. To be honest, I hadn't heard of it because I'm new to the area, but I saw it and I just thought it sounded like a wonderful place. I looked online and could see all the different terrific programs they do, and in particular when I came on board, it was during the pandemic, and the staff here just pivoted so beautifully to get some great online programs and content materials as well. So there's some great things on YouTube too. You know, we do a big annual appeal at the end of the year. And so, I was responsible for working on that. And also just liaisoning with donors and members throughout the year, sending out emails every once in a while and keeping them engaged, letting them know about things. But yeah, we do get donations, and I think it comes more via donations. So all the operations of the museum, we need financial support for. So, being open, paying staff salaries, upkeep of the facility, having, all the supplies and different things that go into putting on the exhibits, putting on things like the festival, because we get as many sponsorships and we charge admission and so forth, but there's still some underlying costs that we have to cover. So all the donations, the memberships support all of those activities, we do some wonderful events throughout the year. We have, like I said, the Revolutionary Story Time for kids. We do school tours. We have things like the Beer for History events in the fall. We do a ghost walk at one of the local cemeteries. And there's lectures both online and sometimes in person as well. We're starting to open up a little bit more to in-person things, but there's been some nice lectures also online. Posting content online in terms of Revolutionary Storytime goes up there as well. So there's just a wealth of educational materials out there that we do both on site and online. So all of that, of course, staff is working very hard on throughout the year. So all of the contributions go to support that as well. So we're an educational institution and a preservation institution, and so all of the support we get from people helps support that, preserving our history.
called Jail Room at the Lad Gilman House, and brand new for this year's season, we have our exhibit that explores the lasting legacy of the American Revolution. The American Revolution was a major event in world history, and there are plenty of places that you can see its impact throughout time. And you find it in some places that may be rather expected, like in the French Revolution, and some places that aren't so expected, like the 1960 Olympic Games that took place in Rome. And so this exhibit, brand new for this year, explores some of the places that you can see the lasting legacy of the American Revolution.
Are you thirsty for more history?
This is the small parlor at the Folsom Tavern. The Folsom Tavern was built starting in 1773 and opened to the public in 1775, just as the American Revolution was getting underway. The tavern has actually been moved 3 times before landing in its final spot here at the American Independence Museum. What sets this tavern apart from other colonial era taverns is that this building was actually built for the sole purpose of being a tavern. Most taverns in the colonial era were people's homes that they opened up to boarders and for serving food and drinks. But Samuel Folsom built this tavern specifically to be a tavern, and because of that, there are many architectural features that are rather unique. This is the large parlor of the Folsom Tavern, and this room is notable because of 2 very special events that happened in this room. One was the founding of the New Hampshire chapter of the Society of the Cincinnati, which happened right here in this room in 1783. The other notable event that happened in this room was George Washington came here for a visit and ate a brunch, or what they called a light collation. When Washington was making his tour of the northern states, he came here to Exeter, and the Folsom Tavern is actually the only stop he made on his visit to Exeter that day.
I'm Sabina Ian. I'm the Marketing and Content Manager at the American Independence Museum. That means that I'm in charge of all of our promotional material, both print and online that we do. That includes all of our various social channels, updating our website, and really making sure that our museum's wonderful collection and mission get shared with the public, not just here in Exeter, not just those who can come visit the museum, but with our broader audience as well. I have always loved history. I actually moved to Exeter during the pandemic, and one of the first things that I searched for was, are there any just museums in Exeter so I can get familiar with the town, learn a little bit more about it? And I was thrilled to find the American Independence Museum located within walking distance of where I live. So one of the most important things that I feel I do in my role as the marketing and content manager is to take the collection of items that we have, to take the topics that get covered in our tours, in our programs that happen here on site, and digest them into these small little clippets that we can put out to the world and have people just really learn and engage with these bits of history.
Here with the program manager of the museum, Sarah Jaworski. Sarah, thank you for joining. All sorts of fun we got here going on at the museum. So, you might explain to the audience a little bit about these fine clothes I have on?
Absolutely. So you're modeling a typical daily outfit for a man living in the 18th century. So just as we do today when we get dressed, you start with your base layer, your underwear. This is basically the equivalent of your undergarments in the 18th century. It would be your shift. and it's basically just a glorified like nightshirt. It would also be your pajamas. Your next layer would be your stockings or your socks. All right, so you'd put on your pocket, or maybe you might have pockets. So we're gonna just put this on, so it's like wraps right around you. And you'll see why and how this works a little bit better as we continue to get dressed, but it's just that, it's a pocket. Next comes your pants, and you think of like your classic jeans with the button fly. These are kind of the same thing, but they button across. And up. So you can, release the flap for ease of movement. And then if you turn around,
in the back.
yes, they're built to grow with you as you grow and have the ability, so you have a tie here to give a little bit more space, and there's ample room in the back to also tuck your shirt in as well. Petticoat or your skirt. And clothing back then was very versatile, so it is meant to grow and shrink with you as a woman grows and shrinks, particularly with motherhood, because it's so much work to create new clothing. They'd also let it have the ability to kind of grow and shrink. Plus, it's an easy way to get pleats without having to do all the work of sewing pleats. We'd call it a vest. They would call it a waistcoat.
A waistcoat.
It's spelt like waistcoat.
Waistcoat. Waistcoat.
I think this should.
All right.
Now you can stick your hand. Stick your hand right in there, and you'll go right into your pocket.
Perfect.
So you can carry anything that you would have in a pocket today, minus your cell phone. Potentially button that up.
All right. Potentially button.
All buttons or ties. The zipper wasn't invented until the early 20th century.
Now, was it more common to have buttons or ties during that time period?
Men often had buttons, but depending on what economic status you were and things like that, the material would vary. So you could have wooden buttons, horn buttons, metal buttons, like brass buttons were like the pinnacle of fancy. And then comes your bodice or your short coat. I'm gonna pull this on. Women's clothing tended to more have straight pins, like just a straight pin that you'd use to hold things together, and ties and things like that a bit more than the buttons. But buttons obviously are more labor intensive for creation of the garment too.
So, because this is wood buttons, and based on my outfit, what kind of gentleman would be expected to be in these kinds of clothes?
So like a kind of ordinary citizen, definitely not the upper echelon of the society, but just kind of a general middle class. And again, these are made to have the versatility to grow with you. So depending, you can pin it here or pull it nice and tight. You would use straight pins, but for safety's sake, we have some safety pins, so I'll let you. Kind of a daily working outfit. Not necessarily meant for your Sunday best, but not necessarily going out working on the farm outfit as well. Just
Interesting.
Puttering around town.
Puttering around town.
And then again, depending on what you're doing for the day, but if it was just a typical day and you're around the house being a housewife, you would put your apron on. All right, now depending on the season and kind of where you're going, you might put these on once you have your shoes on, and unfortunately we don't have a nice pair of shoes to fit you. But these would go, again, buttons. And kind of the next piece you would do is, it's called a fichu, it's a French word, and it's basically like a kerchief or a handkerchief that you would wear. Depending on the season, it might be made of different materials, but basically it goes around your shoulders. And you can either,
No worries.
tie it across the top, but usually to help kind of cover your shift component that you would put on, which you probably actually should have put it on before, and I apologize.
No worries.
You would put this on right before you put your vest on. And then you would always wear a cap. And again, it serves multiple purposes, modesty, but also again, it provides some shade, some warmth in the winter. There's a cravat or cravat or some sort of collar, so you put it on like this.
Okay.
wasn't just for the priests, and you put it on underneath the collar of your shirt. So you're gonna put it. Do you mind lifting your hair? Let me grab.
And wouldn't I also have to tie my hair together too?
Yes. So
Some
gentlemen,
kind of
you
a-
could have your hair loose, and you'll put on your cap in a minute, or your hat. But you would often tie it in the back, what we call like a little ponytail, but it called it a queue. Gentlemen, for the most part, had long hair. Again, up until about the early 20th century is when short hair became more of the
Popular.
norm for men. And then, again, depending on the season, you might have your cloak. Gentleman would have his coat.
Oh, okay.
I think this might
Nice fancy coat.
Alright, so
Alright.
this would definitely elevate the status of your outfit, wearing
Mhm.
a coat such as this. Again, buttons, fancy buttons. And then, if you're going to be a little bit fancier, or if it was very sunny out, this is actually probably more of a summer piece. But you would have your hat, and you would wear it most often over your cap as well. And then, depending on our weather. In New England, you might then also put, and there's no sleeves, it just goes right around and latches across the neck.
Okay. Hooks.
We have decorative ones, this is a little fancier.
Fancy, yeah.
There you are. And then of course,
Alright.
you would have
My hat.
your tricorn hat.
Why, thank you.
And that is in essence a male outfit from the 18th century. Final pieces.
Okay, cool.
My name is Sarah Jaworski, and I am the program manager here at the American Independence Museum. And what that means is I am in charge of pretty much all the programming that we put together, from field trips with school kids to adult programming that happens on-site and off-site. Pretty much everything that we do for the public other than our tours and our American Independence Festival falls under my job description. So here at the museum, we don't have what people call first-person interpreters. So we don't have folks who dress up and pretend that there's someone who's living in the past. But we do have a costume collection, and I will wear 18th century reproduction clothing for our school programs and some of our public programs, our summer camps and things like that. And some of our volunteers wear the costumes as well. And then for our summer camps, we have child-size costumes that the kids get to dress up in and wear during camp while they're here. I have been working in museums for about 20 years in museum education. I've always been a history geek, and I thought I wanted to be a teacher. And then I did a little bit of teaching and realized I wasn't ready for all of the extra that comes with teaching, like the parents and politics and things like that, and realized you could actually work teaching in a museum, and that's kind of how it stuck. And then I was laid off from a job, and a job came up here, and I'm a local girl, so it was perfect, and I've been here for about 3 years now. So history is useless if it's just kept locked away. So basically what I do in my position is help bring the history out to the public and share it with people. And the hope kind of for me personally is that it helps individuals in their daily lives to better understand kind of where we are, how we got here, and nothing is new. Everything that we experience now in terms of like the human condition has happened before, so it kind of just helps I think to learn about it from the past, and kind of it's reassuring to know that everything that we're going through now people have kind of experienced in the past, just maybe a little different culture or different technology, but the essence of like the human feelings and things that we're dealing with are the same.
I think it's really important for those of us in the present, and also to preserve it for the future, to know where we came from and see the choices that were made, see what went before us, so that we can continue to be good citizens and learn from history. What's that saying? Those who ignore history are doomed to repeat it. So I think it's a great learning lesson that we're here to develop ourselves as people, to develop ourselves as citizens, to preserve what was given to us, before, and keep it going. And especially, my interest has always been American history, and this place particularly appealed to me because of preserving the revolutionary story and the importance of freedom.
It's important to preserve history because understanding the past can help us to understand where we are today as a nation, as a society, and as a people. And there are many ways that history can help us to better understand each other. So it's important for us to preserve the past and to interpret it and analyze it and try to make connections between the past and the present, which is what we do here at the American Independence Museum. This is the only museum that explores New Hampshire's role in the American Revolution. And New Hampshire did make several contributions to the cause for independence.
If you are on social media at all and want to engage with us, we're there for you. We are on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and most recently, we've got a TikTok channel. So I hope to see you there as we continue to share public history.